Hi everybody, Matt Lawton here, and this is the Astrological Winds channel, and we are going to look at the astrological weather for the week of May 11th through the 17th. And this is a week, there's a lot of activity this week. It's a week of 5 different shifts in either planets' signs or their motion. And I talked about in my monthly forecast for May about the changes in motion of Saturn, Jupiter, and Venus, all going retrograde in May, all this week. And we also have Mercury and Mars both changing signs this week. So that's a lot of different shifts in energy. And the retrograde motion ones will last, in the Jupiter and Saturn cases, 4 months or so, and in Venus's case, about a month and a half. So they're longer term energies going on, medium long. And then the shifts of Mars and Mercury will last, for Mars' case, a couple months. So once again, a medium long shift. Mercury's case, 2 or 3 weeks. So a medium short shift. But all these things will be changing the background energy of what's going on these days. Now, I talked a lot about the 3 retrogrades, the Saturn, Jupiter, and Venus ones in the May monthly forecast. So I am not going to get into nearly as much detail with them on this one. And if you need to know more about that, you have to just go back to that video, a couple videos back, and watch that. So, but Monday is the day Saturn goes retrograde. So, when Saturn, like I said, goes retrograde, it's a time where we, both personally and socially, because Saturn is one of the 2 social planets, have to really reassess the structures in our lives. And we can see where they're failing and try to get an idea about how we're going to patch those failings up, change structures, improve structures. Now, while the retrograde motion is going on, which is 4.5 months with Saturn, which will be until the end of September, more likely than not, we're just going to see more and more of these structures, systems failing us. So, unfortunately, too, from my perspective, Saturn rules both Capricorn and Aquarius, okay? Saturn with Capricorn is kind of looking back into the past to see what has worked and gotten us this far successfully. Saturn with Aquarius is its other face looking into the future, kind of almost like the god Janus with the 2 faces, but not really the god Janus in this case, just in that it's looking into the future when it's in Aquarius. So it's like, how can I improve these systems that I have? So here it is in Aquarius right now, only at about 1 degree, and it's going to retrograde back into Capricorn, and I believe that's July 2nd. And so I really think most people and society itself is going to try to look into the past part of Saturn that's worked for us before, and once again test to see if those old structures can support us again. But I think ultimately, for the most part, they will fail, and that will set up Saturn in Aquarius later in the year, next year or the year after, to start working on improving those things. So in your life, what structures are failing? Start to assess that stuff the next 4.5 months. Start to think about how you can maybe improve those systems. Okay, so also Monday, the day starts Mercury square Mars, 29th degree of Mercury in Taurus to Mars in Capricorn. So Mercury and Mars together can be pretty ornery usually, and people can definitely be in a combative, argumentative, defensive kind of position where they're really trying to push their beliefs in an aggressive, in a mentally aggressive, a coercive way, trying to convince you they're right. And even if you can control that within yourself, you may end up having a lot of situations today with others who are unable to do that. And then you are the one on the receiving end of that combative energy. And at that point can get sucked into what's like argumentative or disputes, things like that, just differences in approaches, and and then this mentally aggressive energy about it. The other issue with that is like moving too fast, making decisions too quickly, which end up messing yourself up basically by making mistakes, hurting yourself even from an accident, something like that. It's quite possible. Now, later in the day, though, the second big shift of the week, Mercury goes into Gemini. Now, Mercury in Gemini is very comfortable there. Mercury rules Gemini, and Mercury in Gemini is all about like going from one place to another and taking in as much input or information as possible, and then sorting through that information to find out what's valuable for you. So it's kind of like, really, once again, it's almost like that North Node that I talked about going into Gemini last week. It's like looking at all this information that you're getting and trying to discern what is factual and true for you and what is not. Now, Mercury in Gemini is definitely in a very like detached zone emotionally. So like, we'll go from one place to another, not get into depth very much on things. And in fact, we'll like, push people who are allowing their thinking to be influenced by their emotions. Mercury will actually just kind of, in Gemini, will push those people away and move on. Now, it's interesting, like, to note, Venus also in Gemini and going retrograde this week. So is the same way. Right now, basically, deep emotions are in relationships are like a turnoff on a lot of levels, and Mercury in Gemini will definitely it wants to process a lot of information for sure. It's very talkative, communicative, wants to connect with others, will move around. The mind is like very acute, lively, restless, and almost too much. So a lot of times, if you have proclivity to have nervous energy, Mercury in Gemini can really ratchet that up. It really is at times too much information or information overload. But that's where Mercury is actually comfortable. So that's why he rules there. But the other thing about Mercury in Gemini too is it can get into that trickster kind of mode that Mercury can be too. It's to people who are deeper, that's the thing that Gemini energy, and when Mercury acts like that, can be really a turnoff. So that's something to know about when you realize, when you know that. So that effect can be hitting other people if you're going to fall into that trickster mode. But Gemini is on that, always on that search for the truth. Gemini is living in the world of duality and trying to figure out what is real truth, what is not truth. So the Mercury in Gemini is really going to look for that in all this information and try to figure out what that is. Now on Tuesday, that Mercury trines the Saturn, which is just stationed retrograde at 1 degree Aquarius. So it's a really good day to like really focus your attention and concentrate on the details of things, like, and really get into like working with the skills, your hands, tools, the mind. All three of those things together work really well with Mercury and Gemini. And then when you when you bring in Saturn's stability, its focus, it can really give you like a laser like focus. So Tuesday is really a good day to work on the details of plans, to organize things, to keep the mind on practical, realistic thoughts, and, not really waste words either, just like not go off on fanciful, idealistic things with people, but really keep the conversation tight and to the point. And I think most people really won't even will want to add much more to the conversation anyway. So, that Saturn retrograde too, it's gonna definitely, bring up like people's inhibitions, a certain kind of melancholy kind of feeling, like, the loneliness and isolation feeling that a lot of people are feeling right now from, the quarantine and things like that. So, it's really, Mercury getting there can help really focus a lot of that energy and make it useful rather than into this like brooding kind of like half empty way of looking at things. So also on Tuesday, Mars, which is that 29th degree of Aquarius. Did I say Capricorn before? It's Aquarius, actually. Is going to be trining the North Node, which is just got at the 29th degree of Gemini. So it's a really good day for group efforts to come together with different people and start to work on projects. But later in the day, because Mars is at 29 degrees Aquarius, it's the second planet that's going to change signs this week, and Mars is going to go into Pisces. Now, Mars is not particularly strong in Pisces, not particularly weak either. It has a little bit of beneficial energy, but it's not a rulership. It's not an exaltation. So it's not super strong there. And, I've seen Mars in Pisces act three mainly different ways over the years. And, one of the things that's very dangerous about Mars and Pisces, in my opinion, and especially in a day and age like this, is that people will go to war over their beliefs. That's really a really good way to say it. So, people will battle out individually and get aggressive about what their belief system is, and kind of make everybody else a heathen, basically. So it's almost like this Dionysian myth that's going on with Mars and Pisces, where like you're either with us or you're not, and and if you're not, you're the enemy. So so there's that. And of course, that's a little bit dangerous right now in the sense that the world is in such a delicate place that that energy can easily, catch a fire and really push people toward like literally what it would be like, their own version of their own crusades or religious wars or things like that, whether it's like on an individual level or a national level or within a nation against different groups, subgroups, subcultures within the nation. So that's very, very potent energy with Mars going into Pisces that people can get in this really aggressive way about what their value system is. But the other two things you can see too is it will for certain people, really can drain their motivation, their self-motivation, their willpower, their strength of character, and they can easily fall under the influence of someone who acts with that kind of fervor of the Mars and Pisces pushing their beliefs. So it's almost like it's easy to influence other people who have lost a lot of their will and strength and motivation when Mars is in Pisces, for those who are on that zone of being zealots about what they believe in. So that's, a very big danger, is to, not take in stuff so deeply that, you go down some path that someone else is laying out for you that is a path of delusion, basically. So that's one of the dangers of Mars and Pisces too. And then the other thing about Mars and Pisces, the real positive side, is like acts of great compassion and caring and empathy for others. So like, the ability to slow aggressive Mars energy down, bring it into a more smooth flow, and then be more aware of our actions, and then be able to like share like more like charitable type actions and works with others. So a lot of shifting going on with that Mars and Pisces too. And then same day again, I'll tell you, a lot going on Monday and Tuesday. Venus goes retrograde in Gemini also. So that's our fourth of those 5 big shifts, and talked a lot about that in the monthly once again. So I want you to mainly go back to that. But a quick reminder, Venus, when it goes retrograde, doesn't matter what sign it is, any relationships that are on shaky ground definitely hit a very stressful point for 6 weeks. Some of them don't survive, and many of the relationships that we actually start during that time will not last very long, because they're started under a spell of like delusion or illusion. So like, there's going to be a lot of possible conflicts in close relationships, things like that. The other things that Venus rules too will also be under stress. So like investments, money, finances, art, fashion, all those things are going to take a step back. And it's more likely than not, because of the situation going on in the world today, that a lot of those things will be affected. But you'll also see that in your personal life. But like I said, Venus in Gemini, Venus in retrograde in Gemini this time, there'll be a lot of conflict over the information that we're getting in, a lot of conflict if it gets emotional with people. So it's really a time that, if the relationships you have with others are good, usually from what I've seen, not much of an effect. It's the ones that are on shaky ground that really get affected by it. All right, and now the 5th change of the week was Jupiter going retrograde too, and that will be on Thursday, and that will be for 4 months. And once again, talked a lot about Jupiter going retrograde in the monthly and working with Saturn on a societal level, and I really would prefer not to go through all of that again. But the thing is, this will play in with the Mars in Pisces too. This is when people kind of first of all, on a personal level, your plans of whatever expansion and stuff will probably not go forward very much during these 4 months. You can maybe internally make a lot of plans and stuff, but as far as getting them going in the real world, more likely than not, it's really not going to happen yet, and the danger about Jupiter in retrograde is it really can expose the hypocrisy that people have in their value systems and their morals and stuff. It'll be really easy to see that, So, and then, on bigger practical levels, like, restricted foreign travel, issues with the law, issues with medicine. I mean, it's all these things we see going on in society right now because of the coronavirus. And so it's really playing into that. But like I said, a lot more detail on that in the monthly. So those are that's the fifth of the 5 big changes of the week. And, there are two or three last things later in the week that, are worth knowing about too. If you remember, Mercury, we trined Saturn on Monday today, and last week on the weekend it trined Jupiter and Pluto. And I think that really, like I said, really gave people the ability to connect, make plans, things like that. And now the sun is going to do the same thing this weekend. The sun's falling a little bit behind Mercury, who speeds ahead of it most of the time, but it's going to do the same thing this weekend. It's going to trine Pluto and then trine Jupiter. So it's a continuation of this energy of looking deep within ourselves, right? And seeing where we've had these blocks, seeing some of our subconscious and psyche, and wanting, with the trine, really wanting to work through that, and realizing that we need to connect with others and get benefit from doing things together, and that's where we can find our self-empowerment too. That's where we can find expansion. That's where we can find growth. That's where we can find people we share values with. So all that energy is going on again this week too. Mercury and the sun both trining those planets that are out in Capricorn and Aquarius, really are allowing us inside ourselves to open up to some of the energies we're seeing and working with them in a positive way, which really, as we can see, includes working with others. So that energy is still available, still very apexed, and this week, and especially on the weekend again when the sun makes those exact trines. So a lot of shifts going on this week. And, just a time of once again, really trying to discern with all the information coming at us what the truth is, and not allowing ourselves to get carried off on some odd vendetta under the influence of someone else, rather than looking deep in ourselves and finding out what the truth is for us, and finding other people that are like-minded and working with them on some way of moving forward. All right. Until the next Astrological Winds channel, which maybe not be until next week at this point, this is Matt Lawton, and if you need a reading of any type, I do all kinds of astrological services. It's Matthue, MATTHUE 823 at gmail.com. Give me an email and we can talk about what you're looking for, what costs are, things like that. Still have, I think, 2 people now who are interested in doing a beginner's course, and I said it before, I need 4 committed people. That means prepaid committed people to start any course. But beginners, intermediate, advanced, specialty courses are, something that we could do, but once again, need those people to step up if that's what really wants to happen. All right, Matt Lawton signing off. Hope you all have a good week. Stay safe. Until next time.